What's up guys, how are you guys today? Well, I want to show you guys on how you can use a soldering iron to solder small copper wires back together. Now these are very old RCA plugs, by the way. These are two separate RCA plugs, so you guys can see that. I'm just going to put these back together by using some solder and some heat shrink tube as well. You guys can see the heat shrink is on the cable itself. But what's going on here is the way these are built is you have the outer jacket is your shield. Okay, let's bring that up to the camera so you guys can actually see it. Okay, up here is the conductor. That's your middle pin there, and your outer jacket is your shield. Okay, now these are very old cables. I had to strip these kind of off camera before I can actually get all my shield back on these cables, because these are very old and the rubber insulation likes to stick to the copper wire. Now, of course, the type of tools you're going to need is you're going to need a soldering iron, a pair of pliers, some cutters, and also some wire strippers, and also maybe some wire cutters to cut the wires themselves. And also you might need a heat gun, or you just need a standard lighter like this. But do not use the soldering iron to melt the heat shrink, it will not work. And also you're going to need some heat shrink tube. This is from Radio Shack, by the way. Good old heat shrink tube will work just fine. And you're going to need some solder to solder everything back together. Now, this is just a experiment. I'm going to see if I'm going to able to get these two wires back together and see if it can work or not. Now, we gotta isolate the shield from the conductor wires here. Alright, by doing that, by isolating, you put a piece of heat shrink when you solder it all together, because it has two wires in there. This is a single core wire with a conductor in the middle and the ground. But my soldering iron right now is heating up pretty nice. Typically you should tin your wires first, but I'm not going to tin the wires today because I'm just going to go ahead and directly solder the wires directly together here. Now, this can be quite a little fiddly because of how much of the wires we're going to need to solder. Now, there's a couple different methods out there you can actually solder the wires together. I like to twist the wires like this, okay, and that makes a pretty nice, somewhat of a good connection now. If I twist the wires very tightly, the wires will stay together. Now, there's another method you can twist the wires. You can take the two wires here, and you can twist them both together, and you can fold the wire over top of each other. You can also do that. And make sure, before you start soldering, make sure you have the heat shrink on your wire itself. But make sure you put the heat shrink all the way back from your iron, because this cable will get somewhat warm. And I've done this in the past before. I had the heat shrink all the way over here, and it just shrunk the heat shrink, and I kind of messed up the heat shrink, and I can't slide it over. That's why you want to make sure you put the heat shrink all the way down on end when it stays nice and cool. Now, this is a very old wire. So let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and take some of my Radio Shack solder here, and we're going to bring this over here, and we're going to see if my soldering gun or soldering iron is hot, and let's see if it's going to melt some solder. We're going to go ahead and tin the soldering iron here, and it looks pretty hot to me. Now, the one thing is I like to clean off again just to make sure she's all ready to go and whatnot. Make sure she's all nice and tanned up. And it's a couple ways you can do this. You can put the soldering iron on top of the wire like this, or underneath the wire for the wire to actually get directly heated nicely on the soldering iron. Now this wire is a copper wire. It will suck the solder in somewhat. Now, if that method doesn't work, you can do this. You can put the wire right over top, or the soldering iron right over top of the iron, like this, and you can just slowly get the iron or the wire to hot for both sides to be melted. This takes a little time, this takes a little patience. You gotta give yourself some time here, guys. And there you go. Now, again, you guys can see I have a little bit of solder on my table. That's okay. You can just, pick those right off. Make sure they're cool enough before you start trying to get them off. Let's somewhat inspect the wire cell. Now, of course, we don't have a solid connection on the one side. But it's gotta, feed more of the solder in just to make sure the little guy is getting the amount of solder it needs to have on there to keep the wire to look nice. And we just can heat up the solder, and you can move the solder around like this, and it looks pretty nice. That's called a mechanical connection. Now be careful, make sure you don't heat up the wire too much for you actually distort your shielding or your conductor here, this plastic stuff. Make sure you don't heat that too much, and make sure you don't ruin it. And we so far have a very nice solid connection. That wire is never going to come apart now. That wire was nicely and tight on there. Very awesome. Now, what I had to do to actually get the little heat shrink tube I had to originally to over the cable itself is now we can slide this little guy back over and let the wire cool off before you decide to do this. You can use a heat gun or a ladle to actually heat the heat shrink. I'm just going to use a lighter today. See what it does for me. And it's going to shrink it nice and tight. Now, if you want to use the heat gun, you can also do that as well. I have no problems with that. And there you go. Make sure you don't keep the heat on the heat shrink too much, because you will burn the crap out of your heat shrink. It's really important to keep the heat only in one spot. Now, this looks like it's shrunk enough. Looks pretty good to me. I don't much mind. It doesn't bother me if I have it loose or not. But give it a tug, give that wire a good tug. And that wire is not going to come apart. That wire is completely now solid in place. Now, the other question is how you're going to do the shield. Now, the shield is a couple different ways. We can put the piece of heat shrink over top of the shield, but the problem is, you guys can see the shield wiring, it's not going to work. Because the reason why this is not going to work here, guys, what I should have done is I should have put it on the wire, but I can put it on the wire and try to slide up on the shield. It's just not going to work because I've done that before in the past. But make sure you just have the ground or your conductor wire completely shielded away from your shield wire before you get actual a signal back for your thing. Now, a couple of things you can do. You can also use some electrical tape, and you can tape the two wires together and stuff. But the biggest problem, what I'm going to apparently going to run into, is I can't put this piece of heat shrink over top of my build copper wire, it's not going to work. Why? Because that's just the way these wires are kind of in a pickle. But because it's a very small and fine connection on both sides of the wire itself. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to be able to put the heat shrink on the barrel couple. I'm just going to have to leave that completely off for the time being. But you can also use electrical tape as well. That would be also recommended as well. But today this is just a demonstration to how to solder two pieces of wire back together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and twist this wire back together. Now make sure it's all nice and smooth. I mean, you see, it's being a little pain. You just want to make sure it's smooth. And the problem is sometimes the wire doesn't want to cooperate. You just have to twist it the own way. Make sure you get a very nice, smooth wire, and also very nicely done fashion. Now, the reason why I use heat shrink a lot is the heat shrink tube really does work for what I need it for a couple reasons. Because the heat shrink looks a little bit better than electrical tape. But yeah, this is just a junk wire I had laying around, just demonstrating the wire itself. And making sure everything looks good, making sure all the connections looks alright, making sure none of the copper wires break off. But yeah, so you see I'm trying to get these two wires back together again. And this will actually be one piece back together. Now, of course, I don't know how well this is really going to work. I may just completely test it out. I may not test it. I may make sure it works. And I'm going to make sure it does like it's supposed to. Now, again, with having these wires being a little pain in the butt, but it will go back together eventually. You just have to take your time. You gotta twist these wires together somehow, and that's important. And you see, these two wires will not want to twist together. It's being a little annoying, a pain in the butt. It's like, oh my god, why won't these two wires twist together? God damn it. It's like, holy cow. Alright, now, we got those wires back together again. Slowly back together. That took a little time. But I wish I could put this piece of heat shrink over this copper wire. I wish I can do that. But it's not going to work. And let's go ahead and, again, take my soldering iron. Again, being very careful not to melt the iron conductor. Make sure we tin the wire itself, or the soldering iron, and make sure we wipe off the extra solder we don't need on them. So make sure this is nice and clean. Just get a little whoop, wipe off. And yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here soldering these two RCA jacks back together. Not a very good thing, but it'll work. And we'll just go ahead and then see what we can do here. Make sure we don't burn the bottom wire. Well, we don't want to do that. We only want to melt the top of the wire. Make sure I get a good and nice hot wire. Okay, it's somewhat getting out. Somewhat, I think. Takes a little time. Now that doesn't work. The trick is I just put the soldering iron on top. And I just let the solder flow through the wire. And it takes a while for the wire to heat up, because the wire is kind of cold. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm trying to get you guys a good shot here on what I'm doing. But yeah, just keep the soldering iron on that wire, and the wire should pull the solder in. That's typically what it's supposed to do. Come on, Mr. Soldering Iron. Sorry, this soldering iron is being a pain in the bit. It's getting there. It's slowly getting there, guys. Slowly heating up the wire. I don't know what soldering iron I need next, but this is just a 30 little watt iron, but it definitely is melting the solder into the little wire here. And that's what you want. You just want to make sure it just melts it in there. Not a whole lot, but you know, just want to make sure it's nice and tinned all the way around the wire. I'm just poking at it, kind of getting that wire to stick in the center places. And we'll just keep on doing the same thing on the side. Gotta make sure the wire is kind of getting nice and hot. It's kind of interesting to see what how the solder just flows right in. Yeah, that's why I'm just using a nice hot soldering iron on the wire itself. And we're just giving it a good old sucker one. Because we want to make sure it's actually penetrating the wire on both sides of the iron. And that's about it. She's almost done. There we go. She's now done. And there we go. That's how we solder the wire back together. Now again, this wire did get kind of warm. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's doable. You guys can see it's like choppy, but it's because it's a really thick wire. It's not perfect, but it can be perfect if you you know, you practice more and you know, put the wire on it and stuff. Heat up the soldering iron a little bit better. But this is just a, you know, it's very, you know, standard soldering iron, you know, from Radio Shack. I can just you know, melt the wire in there. It's just an old wire I had laying around. Just getting it all coated on either side. Just make sure it's a good joint here. Just want to make sure it's a better joint, and I just want to make sure it's going to actual like it's opposed to here. But yes, this is a very tricky situation of each wire themselves. Now we got the wire somewhat heated up on either side. As you guys can see, I have the conductor wire here in the middle, isolated from the shield wire. Now this wire is a little warm, but we're going to go ahead and take the on wire, or the piece of heat shrink, from one to the on side. Make sure you don't heat shrink it too far. And we got the on piece. It's just a single piece of heat shrink. And we're just going to take that from the on side. And we're almost done with this annoying wire here. This is just the wire I had lying around, and I just was like, ooh, what can we do today? Yeah, now let's go ahead and shrink this guy here. Okay, I may have to pull out the big guns here. I may not. Hold on here, guys. I may can get it with the little ladle. Little ladle sometimes will work, but sometimes I just have to get the big guns out, and my big giant little guy over there, the Mr. Heat Gun over there, and we can shrink everything up. It's good enough for me. This is just a junky wire I had laying around. But it's not perfect, but you guys can see I'm not that good at soldering, but I'm somewhat good at it. But yeah, there you go. This is how you can solder your old-fashioned wire block together. Now the RCAs are now a one-piece cable in instead of two separated pieces. Guys can see that I just have soldered the two wires back together again. And now it's just a single cable now. Alright guys, if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment down below. Please hit a subscribe button. Please like, please share. Peace out. Bye guys, we'll see you in the next vlog.